Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome to the next installment of the Breakthrough Series from Book Mecca. I am Shaylin Scott, the founder of Book Mecca, an online Black bookstore and literary resource for all things Black lit. So, as our friends and family start rolling in, we're going to get this conversation started. And you can also catch this on the replay on YouTube, Facebook, and IGTV. So, we're everywhere. So, make sure you have all your notepads and pens because I'm pretty sure you're going to get some gems from tonight. So, without further ado, let me introduce who we have today. Today, we have the author of the amazing book that you should definitely get if you have not gotten already. You can get it at Amazon, any local bookstore, and Book Mecca, of course. Dear Black Girl, Letters from Your Sisters on Stepping into Your Power. And this is from Tamera Winfrey Harris, who is our wonderful award-winning author tonight. She is the writer who specializes in the ever-evolving space where current events, politics, pop culture intersect with race and gender. Her book touches on so many things, and believe me, when you read through these letters, you will personally understand and know what I'm talking about when we go through it a little bit. She's well versed on a range of topics, including Beyonce's feminism, Rachel Dolezal's white privilege, and the Black church and female sexuality. She's been published in media outlets, including the New York Times, the Atlantic, Cosmopolitan, New York Magazine, and the LA Times. Her latest book, Dear Black Girls, Letters from Your Sisters on Stepping into Your Power, was published in March of this year. So you guys have an extra treat. A this year released book has been published, and like I mentioned earlier, if you don't have it, get the book. Just get the book. Okay. She's won the Phyllis Wheatley Award, Indie Fab Award, Independent Publishers Living Now Award, and the IPPY Award. So without further ado, let me introduce Miss Tamera Winfrey Harris.
Hi.
Hey.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you are so welcome. I am so happy to talk to you. I tell you, for all of those who have read this book, you know exactly what I mean when I say this is written with love. Every single letter in here is written with love. All the things you wish you could have, should have said to yourself is in here.
Thank you. It really, it means a lot to hear you say that, because that's what I wanted when I wrote this book. I wanted it to model the way we should talk to each other and to ourselves. And so I'm glad that came through.
Oh, it definitely did. It definitely did. Well, as anyone who's watched the Breakthrough series, you never know what kind of question may come up, and we just roll with the punches. So I have all my questions here. So we're going to try to get through as many as possible as we can before the end of the night. So to get us started, your book touches on so many different topics. I mean, from self-esteem to colorism, sexuality, adoption, Black hair, friendships. There's so many ways that we could go with this. So I'll start with one. Because there are so many commonalities among Black girlhood as a whole, the experiences that we have, regardless of the background, what kind of led you to put out this ask for letters? How did this all start?
So there's a larger reason, and then there's like a practical reason. So the larger reason is, when I was touring around with my first book, I noticed, a girlfriend of mine was working as my publicist, and we were driving back from an event one weekend, and she said, we realized something that we kept seeing, and that was in groups of Black women, sometimes when they would talk about stereotypes, they would reject them for themselves, right? Mm-hmm. But then when they started talking about younger women and girls, all of a sudden they were talking about them using that same language. So, and I remember the exact moment. There was an elder sister who said about young women, they're awfully free with their bodies. I guess that's some kind of liberation. And she had this look of disgust on her face. And so, it got me thinking, are girls seeing that? Is that, when they look to people who should be their greatest allies because we've walked the same path that they have, are they seeing the ways that we've internalized some of the negative things that people say about us?
Mm-hmm.
And as I started interviewing Black girls, that's what I heard. A lot of them said, you know what, it was, my grandmother who told me to stay out of the sun because I didn't want to get too dark.
Wow.
It was, my aunt that told me that, if I was being too fast. It was a Black female school a Black female school counselor that told me I was too loud or too ratchet and so I wanted to model, the ways that we can interact with each other with love. It's hard when you're surrounded by all this poison about Black women. It's very easy to internalize that and pass it on to our sisters and our young sisters, our little sisters. Also, I was doing a workshop with two friends here in Indianapolis, and I just thought it would be neat if the 12 girls that were participating would get a signed letter from a Black woman. And I kind of offhandedly went on social media and asked for that. And instead, it went viral. And instead of like 12 letters, I got more than 50 from around the world, actually, because I got one from Switzerland and I got one from Canada. And so, I read the first one. It made me ugly cry. It was beautiful. And I was like, this has to be bigger than that. And there were so many things that women said that needed to not just be heard by like one girl that got a letter, that like a bunch of girls and women could benefit from. And so I decided a book was a way to do that.
Well, thank you for bringing it to light. Because
thank you.
Now, I will say, when I was reading through the letters, I was sitting here thinking, like, when was the last time I wrote a letter? Period. Like you mentioned in the book, writing a letter takes effort. Yes, especially now. You got to find a stamp. You got to go to the post. You got to write it out. Think about what you're writing. And the last letter I wrote, I had to have been in college. I can't remember the last time I wrote one.
Yeah. It's probably, I had a pen pal when I was in high school, probably in college. And actually, I had a chance to deliver some letters to some girls in a local program here, a girl's gift. And it was so neat seeing them open those letters and open up some of the pretty stationery. And, one of them said, nobody's ever done this for me before, because, an 11-year-old, a 12-year-old girl probably hasn't ever received a letter.
Yeah.
Because who does that anymore?
Exactly. And I think the last letter I wrote, I was asking my dad for money. That had been it. It was, I know it was for nothing good. It was just, it was like, I need money for school. It's like, who knows? But now it definitely motivated me to think about, maybe I should write someone a letter that I care about. It's more personal than a phone call and a text. So when you were receiving all those letters, were there any that kind of surprised you, that you came in from someone you didn't know? Or Switzerland, of course, was a surprise. But were there any others that kind of shocked you about how open they were?
That's exactly it. One, I was surprised by how many most of the letters came from people I didn't know. And, my assumption was, people I'm connected with on Facebook, some girlfriends, some, soul schoolmates, those are the kind of the people that would respond. But people that I absolutely didn't know responded. But then on top of that, I was surprised with how naked and vulnerable they were willing to be. Because, you're sending a letter to somebody you don't know. They don't know me. They don't know, they know how I said I was going to use the letter. But Black women were willing to make themselves vulnerable for younger Black women and girls. And I think that's an example of showing up. I think they showed up and took a risk.
Yes, they
in order
did.
to communicate to Black girls.
That's what makes it so relatable, is the honesty in the letters. You could tell that they were writing it. So for all of you who are just tuning in and listening, I'm going to give you just a little backstory if you didn't hear a little bit. So the name of the book, Dear Black Girls, Letter from Your Sisters on Stepping Into Your Power. Get the book. Get the book. But these are a compilation of letters, 30 feminist, anti-racist, body positive, LGBTQ plus positive, anti-respectability politic, pro-black letters from black women to black girls. And it's all wrapped around the commentary and analysis from Tamara Winfrey Harris. The way it's weaved together, it's not just simply someone reading a letter to you and saying you should love yourself more. It's so much more than that. And I think that's what makes it really beautiful. So, what was it about the letters that you chose that made them so profound to publish them?
So I think the important part, I think you hit the nail on the head with the letters aren't just you should love yourself more. Because yeah, sure, okay, but how? Like
Mm-hmm.
how do I love myself? Look, we often do that to girls and women. It's like, oh, you'll be okay. Like,
Yeah.
you're beautiful. Don't. It's
Why
fine.
you say it?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But how? But sometimes how? Like how do you feel beautiful if people tell you your dark skin is ugly and everything you see around you reinforces that? How do you feel beautiful if, maybe your father, who should be your protector,
Mm.
isn't reliable? How do you feel like how do you act as a good friend when you've never seen examples of good friendship?
Mhm.
Or all of those things. What do you do after you've been sexually assaulted and you don't have anyone you can really talk about that with? So I wanted this book to I wanted girls to see themselves in all the ways they show up in the world.
Yeah.
We're not just black girls. We're black girls and a whole lot of other things. And
And
I wanted the book to be honest about a lot of the experiences that black girls have. Not all black girls, but we also know things like sexual assault happen more often to black girls than
Mhm.
other girls. We know that incarceration, like the school to prison pipeline, is preying on black girls more than other girls. And so, very often we don't want to talk about those things because they're messy and they're sad and they're ugly. I wanted to put that in there, in addition with like all the stuff about black girl magic and how
Yes.
awesome we are.
Yes, and you definitely put all of that in there for sure. It showed the depth and the layers that we have, which made it really beautiful. And I bet after you put out that ask and you publish your book, you got a really big response, I'm sure. Were there any that you received that kind of caught you off guard or that are really memorable to you?
Yes. So some of them, like the language, I'm a writer and I love language, but I was surprised at how many letters were not from writers, but were just so beautiful. In addition to just the content was good, but just the beautiful ways that women spoke to black girls and the way they told their stories. Like, one said, "You are light and stars in the universe." And one woman talked about how you are here with me through every awesome thing that I do in my career. There's just some beautiful sentiment and very gentle and loving language from black women here.
Oh, yes, it definitely is. Now, I don't know about you, but well, I'm going to ask you anyway. Did you have a letter that you found particularly spoke to you more than others?
That's so hard. It's like choosing a baby. Like what? choosing between-
Everybody
but
have a favorite
I'll
baby.
say
They
this,
lying if they say they didn't.
right?
You got a favorite baby, I know.
The one that I will always love and always come back to is the one it's in the I Didn't Ask for This chapter, and it's written by a woman named Nicole, and it's on page 97 of the book, and it is actually the first letter that I received when I
Hmm.
called for letters. It's the very first one that I received, and when you read it, you will know
Oh yeah.
why I ugly cried and why
Yeah.
after reading this I was
Yeah.
like, this has to be a thing.
Yeah. I got a lot of notes on that one. If you see.
Just the know that you are not alone, you are not invisible. I see you. You are capable. You are powerful. you are worthy, you are part of a larger community, and with us, you are home. Like,
yes,
it just gives you chills.
yes. I think in that same one, I underlined, do not fear your own brilliance and beauty. Don't hide it or dim your light because others complain of the glare. I was like, that's right.
Yes.
That's their problem, not mine.
Yes.
Shine your light. Shine it out there. Tell them to put on some shades if they can't
Right.
see your light. It's just little things like that
Right.
throughout the book. And I found it, even though some of the things you may have heard before,
Mm-hmm.
the way it was written, it was just a reminder, as in, I am pretty awesome. I can do this. Let me kick some doors down and do something great. Yes.
And I think what was special is that, a lot of the women talked about hardships they had, in adulthood and childhood. And very often I opened the book by talking about Kashawn Thompson, who was the woman who actually coined the term Black girl magic, but who very often doesn't get recognition for doing that because, as she says, she just wasn't the right kind of Black woman. So she was a single mom and she was struggling and all of those things. And so I think very often girls feel like you have to be a certain kind of girl to have Black girl magic and to be great and to have that light. And that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has it. And I wanted that to be clear in this book.
Exactly. Say that again for the people in the back. Yes. Be who you are. I love that. Love that. There was one that I found I definitely liked a lot more. I got notes through pretty much every letter in here. But there was one in particular on page 75 where my girl's at.
Mm-hmm.
Now that one there, at first I was thinking, oh, that's I like that. I got friends.
Mm-hmm.
I got my people. Who your people? I got my folks. Yes. And then I sat there and read through, people always take me for granted, but you constantly put yourself last and teach others to put yourself last too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking, wait a minute. You just read me.
Like, you didn't have to do that now.
Yes. I was going along like, yes, you should love yourself. Mm-hmm. And then it hit me like, I am not doing what I'm asking for. So it was real good reminders like that throughout.
Yeah.
Look, I digress, y'all. Y'all know this. I get into the books and I fall in love with them. So another part of the book, there was a part in there that kind of remind me of, I'm say Badu said it best, bag lady.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody ever told you all you must hold on to is you. And sometimes we forget that even as children, they carry baggage. Mm-hmm. It's hard, like you put in the book, daughtering. It's hard to be a child growing up when everything else around you is adulting and you're experiencing it. But you still have to be the daughter, even though as a mom, it can be difficult. So what was your experience kind of reading through that? Or did you come across some of those letters where you felt like maybe this is a little too much in the book?
I mean, I think sometimes we don't give girls and young women enough credit. And, we have this idea that we don't have to talk to girls about difficulties because they're young. What could possibly be wrong with you? Like just read do your studies and watch your TV, play on your phone, whatever. But they are going through things. I mean, that's where our baggage comes from. Yeah. Like those of us who, those of us that are carrying baggage in our 40s and 50s, some of that we picked up when we were 14 and 15. And it was never addressed because we don't give girls space to address it. And so, I mean, ultimately, I've heard so many women that said that daughtering piece spoke to them a lot.
Yes.
But hopefully it also speaks to girls and they realize what I thought was neat about that article was she realized that her mother, her grandmother, the women who came before her had done their best, and they had done it out of love, but maybe everything they did wasn't exactly right
Yeah.
for her. But they were trying, and so she came to terms with that. And maybe some girl reads that, and her mom is trying to force her into sports or to do, and
Yeah.
she hates it because she feels like her mother doesn't understand her. Maybe it'll be a window into understanding where that comes from. So
Yeah.
it doesn't necessarily make it better, but maybe she can give her mom some grace, or better understand that situation.
Now, have you come across more adults that are reading your book, or have you had more teens that are reading your book?
I've really come across a lot of adult women who are reading it. I feel like girls and young women are getting it from adult women, which I actually think is awesome.
Good.
So I've
Yeah.
come across a lot of women who said, I read this, now I'm buying it for my nieces, or I read this, I'm passing it by. My daughter and I are reading this together, which is exactly what I hoped. Like it's causing conversation. I've been so excited that some Black women have gathered books, asked to have books donated so they can pass them on. So, one woman donated books to a school, and I think it was Virginia. There's another woman in Broward County in Florida who is collecting books. Dr. Tiffany Monfordent in Cleveland collected 50 books to pass to girls in Northeast Ohio. So I am loving that Black women, and a wonderful woman, Lisa Butler, donated 60 books back to me so that I can make sure that girls groups and girls who might not have access to the book or be able to afford to buy a bunch of books, that I can share those with them.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Yeah. I definitely think it's one for every age. Honestly, I have 15 and I keep changing their ages, 15 and 16 now, girls. And I'm thinking, just even that story alone about, you often get so lost in the feeling of, I'm a mom. These are the things I need to do. I have to make sure I am doing what I need to for the girls. And you forget it's kind of tough being the daughter. It's kind of tough as well. So it's like okay, maybe let me check myself a little bit here and let them read the book at the same time. So
right.
Have to do a little bit of both. Well, I know for all of you guys that are watching too. So if you have any questions, if you have anything you want to share, feel free to put it in all of the chat here in the live stream. Feel free to do all that, and we can share it all. So keep them coming.
I'd also love to point out, if you are reading the book along with a girl, one great resource is if you go to my website, which is tamerawinfrey.com, there's actually a downloadable free reader's guide that has questions to help you dig into the issues in each chapter. And it's also got some hints from an educator and a psychologist on how to have good intergenerational conversation. Because, there's a power imbalance there. If you're mom and you're talking to your girls and you're like, be honest.
Yeah.
They may not want to hear it. So, how do you have a good conversation?
Which it kind of makes me think too, one of the stories was talking about the relationships and friendships and the different, you could tell that this was written recently because some of the comments were recent comments that were in there. But in this age of social media and technology, do you think it's harder to make these true friends? You talked about friendship, sort of like a courtship. That's how true friendships start, is a courtship, more so like a relationship. Do you think it's harder to make these friends, and how can we combat that? I don't even know.
So, okay, this is me speaking as an adult. It's funny. I was just talking to my sister about this the other day. I have some of my best friends now are friends that I met online. Of course, now I know them in person and I've been to their houses, but I met them in online spaces. But I also think that's me who was an adult when online as a thing happened.
Yeah.
So I have a level of discernment that, a 13-year-old doesn't have. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think you can develop those friendships, but I think it's harder. And I think it's harder because kids are in these, like, they're in these spaces. They haven't developed enough to know who to trust and
Right.
who to do that friendship courtship with. People aren't always themselves online. There's a facade of who they really
Mm-hmm.
are. So I think it's not that you can't make those friendships, but I think for kids, it's a lot harder.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
lot harder.
I agree. And it's a good reminder too for us adults. Like I've seen here recently, there are a lot more women who are, once you graduate out of college and high school and you've kind of
Mm-hmm.
past the seasonal friends and you've outgrown your high school friends, you get to our age. I don't know what your age is. I'm gonna say our age. And you kind of look around and say, do I need more friends? And how do you even start to even get adult friends as an adult? Like, how do you do that? You can't just go to the playground and make friends anymore. It's
Well, one thing I have heard girls say, and I think it's true of adults too, is one thing the internet has done is given them access to other girls like them. Like, I hear a lot of queer girls say, they may feel isolated in a school or family that doesn't accept that identity. And so, online, they can find online spaces though, where they can find people who, their community,
yeah.
or, even different likes. You're the nerd girl who likes Star Trek and stuff, and you're isolated at school, or, whatever that may. You're a Black girl in a white community and you don't see other girls who look like her. So one thing the internet has done is opened up so people can find their folks.
Mm-hmm.
Because not everybody can find folks in person.
And I guess I definitely say, especially since the pandemic had happened, it exacerbated a lot of that anxiety and isolation that was, because
Mm-hmm.
everybody was talking with a friend of mine not too long ago. Everybody wants to be a part of something. They want to be in a group. They want
Yeah.
to feel as if they belong.
Yeah.
No matter what age you are, that never goes away. Period. So it makes me kind of sad where especially during the pandemic, when people are
Mm-hmm.
isolated and they don't feel they have that. But
Right.
even reading these stories, you feel as if you belong because they are so familiar to you. You feel like I am a part of this large collection of sisters out there who are going through the same thing over and over again. I love it. I love it. Love it. But I digress. So next up, we have tell me a little bit about the cover of the book, the picture. Where did that come from? Because it reminds me of something, but I'm gonna let you tell me what it is.
Ooh, okay. Well, it is my dream since my first book that every book that I write have a cover designed by a Black woman artist. That's just a thing that I
Oh,
wanted. So the cover of my first book was designed by a Black woman artist. This cover was designed by an artist named Monica Ahanonu. She's a
okay.
graphic artist that has done a lot of work for, you know, clothing brands, for, magazine covers. She's done a lot of stuff. And, I kind of got together with her through my publisher and said, here's the feeling I want this to, here's the feeling I want this to evoke. And she did it. And I think it's awesome.
Well, I think it's beautiful as well too, and it reminds me because where are you located, Tamara?
Indianapolis.
Indianapolis. Okay, yeah, you're not local, but there's a since I'm here in Texas, I'm a Texas people. If you're watching, if you know a news anchor, Tashara Parker, her hair on the news is like the buns, the balls there.
I love that.
And she got such a big flack about it. There were, of course, so many complaints of it's not professional and all these kinds of things. So she created this whole movement, and now there's a series on Unculture talking about black hair and the Bun Ministry. That's what she calls it. It's
I love
so
it.
beautiful. Made me think about this, like, which another letter in your book it speaks about black hair and
Mhm.
always feeling as if you have to fit into the social norms that are out there and what you've been taught is beautiful or not. I know for
Mhm.
myself, it took a while to get to that point. Did you ever experience that as well? Was there like a wake up that said, you know what, I don't have to keep putting the perm in my head. I don't have to. Just
Definitely. I mean, I think our age, I think we
yeah.
probably like you grew up learning that when you wanted to be pretty, when it was a special occasion, then you got your hair straightened. You know,
Hmm.
whether it was like pressed when you're a little girl, you know, for picture day, you get your hair straightened and
Yeah.
curled. You know, for Easter, you get your hair straightened. Like that's what it means to be pretty.
Hmm.
And then, you know, I was a kid with like real super thick, long, but coarse hair. And so,
Mm.
you know, I heard all the time, even as an adult,
I
I
don't
remember
undo your
my
hair.
stylist would be like, oh, let me go in back and get the industrial strength, you know. And there was this idea that what it meant to be professional and what it meant to be acceptable as a Black woman was to have your hair straightened. And
Yeah.
I've been natural now for a long time. I've had locks for like 6 years.
It's beautiful.
Um, and I still get people that tell me, what if you need a job? What if you, I'm like, I have a job. I'm a vice
Hmm.
president. Thank you very much.
Hmm.
And I do all of that with my,
Hmm.
with my natural hair. But there's still this, there's still this idea that somehow, this hair is unacceptable. And I have to acknowledge though, that some people do find it like the reality is for young women starting out and going to get a job, you may encounter some people. I mean, we all know about that ruling in the Southeast District,
Yeah.
where they ruled it was okay to not hire people because they have their hair like mine. You
Hmm.
know, we hear all the time about girls getting sent home from school because of
Mm.
their hair. So that is a reality we have to deal with. But I hope even if other people don't get it, I want us to get it, that we're
Yes.
okay.
Yeah. I,
And if you choose to straighten your hair, fine.
that's okay.
Don't let it be because there is something wrong with your natural hair, or it's difficult, or it's ugly, or it's hard to manage, or any of those things. Do it because you want to switch it up, not because
Yeah.
of those reasons.
Now, I will say, as a Black woman, we have the most versatile hair out there. We one day you
Yes, we do.
blonde, the next day you have no hair, but you look good both ways. We can do that.
Yeah.
You mentioned two of them just right then about the young girls in school being sent home for their hair, also being sent home for a lot of other reasons, just being looked at as uh, overly sexualized, or they can't wear the same shorts that
Mhm.
others can wear, or
Mhm.
their behavior is looked at differently. All of those types of things that was touched on in the book too. What are your thoughts on that?
It just it just breaks my heart how like Black girls are criminalized in schools or in society. And when I say criminalized, it's not just the ways they're over suspended, because they're
Hmm.
six times I believe more likely to be suspended than white girls, and not because they misbehave. So should be clear about that.
Yeah.
um, so there's that element, the school to prison pipeline, but just how their behavior is criminalized. They're told they're too loud, they're told
Mhm.
they're too aggressive, they're more likely to get violated for dress code violation. So, to your point, they wear the same shorts that white girls are wearing, but somehow when they wear them, it's a violation. And I can't, which again is why I think it's so important to have these conversations with girls, because they see that happening. They
Yeah.
know they're treated unfairly. And so for us not to talk about it and pretend like it doesn't exist, I mean, it's almost like gaslighting them.
Yeah. Yeah. So it kind of makes me think too, when did the notion of just being just too much of everything, too
Hmm.
loud, too voluptuous, too everything. It always seems as if just being who you are is more above what you should be. I don't even know where that started from, but I wish it would go away. I really do.
Now, the thing that has stuck out to me like this year, everyone was talking about the big, Meghan Markle, Prince Harry, Duke and Duchess of Sussex interview with Oprah. And
Hmm.
she said, and this is a white presenting biracial woman, that she was told that she should be 50% less. And
Wow.
like, even a white presenting biracial woman is
Too
too much.
much. Too
I was like,
much.
it fit into now certain, and so if that's too much, imagine the girl who's living on the south side of Chicago and just going to school, a
Hmm.
little black girl, imagine that.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. Oh, so speaking of the young black girl, the title itself, what made you choose this title? I know it's all letters, but why Dear Black Girl, and the letters from your sisters on stepping into your power?
Well, there are two things. I like the two different ways that you can like read Dear Black Girl, like, like at the opening or the salutation in a letter, but also, when you break it down, it's Dear Black Girl. So it's a term of endearment. It's a
Hmm.
loving, term. And then the stepping into your power part, I think stepping into your power is being able to live authentically, and being able to live authentically for black women and black girls, I think, is recognizing all of the expectations and the misperceptions that other people have about us, and then disentangling ourselves from those
Yeah.
and knowing who we are and our most, at our most authentic, and then living that way and loving ourselves that way.
Okay. Okay. Now, I love how you weaved everything together with your analysis and commentary. And for all of you guys who have not read the book, I'm going to give you a little tip in there. She has sections in there called Know This. So the Know This sections are not just helpful tips for you to know and definitions. So I'm going to give you one of the Know This is a definition of a term that most people in our community know. Play cousins. Y'all know what a play cousin is? If you don't know what a play cousin is, it's in the book. I was sitting there like, I had so many play cousins growing up. Why? I don't know. That was the thing. I don't even know where that came from as well. But when I
I,
saw that, I fell out laughing. Like,
I wanted to like, so there are things like that are just cultural things that I thought I would define. And because not everybody reading this book is a black girl or a black
yeah.
woman, and not every black girl and black woman has the same experience. There are
Hmm.
black girls with white moms, black girls living with non-black families,
Yeah.
so they don't know. But then there are also some things that that women mention, names that they drop or terms that, depending on how old a girl is, she may not know, like what a glass ceiling is or what
Hmm.
that means, or she may not know. There's one writer who listed a lot of queer icons. A girl who is 16 may not know who Little Richard is. I know who Little
Yeah.
Richard is. She may not know. So I wanted them to have the opportunity to like learn some things. And then also there are some chapters that deal with difficult things.
Hmm.
And so, we talk about mental health, and I want a girl who's, dealing with her mental health to know that there's a hotline. Like if she's having suicidal ideation, there's a hotline. If you need to talk to someone, here's a number. If you need more information, here's other access. I wanted to make sure all of those things were accessible to girls.
I like that. I like that. Now, when you were working with the workshop with the young girls, did you pick and choose letters to give to them, or was it certain ones? Did they know the person that was writing to them?
No,
Oh.
no. So they were, and it's interesting. So when I delivered letters to that other girls group here locally, the director of the organization said it's so weird. Like I had no idea who I was giving the letters to. She just told me around the age of the girls, and so I chose some letters that seemed to be right. But she said
Hmm.
it seemed like each girl got just the right letter for her,
Wow.
which was
I love
important.
that.
And
Do
I
you
think
think you'll
some of that
keep
speaks
doing
to
this?
universality that of something like we just instinctively, I think, sometimes know what
Yeah.
girls need to.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, we do.
yeah, yeah.
Do you think you'll keep doing sort of it seems like this would be never ending, honestly.
I've thought about that, and people have asked, like, really, you could keep having volumes of this book.
Yeah.
I'm there. I'm sure there
Chicken
are more.
soup for the black girl.
Yes, there are more women who want to write letters, and one thing that I regret, I did not get a letter from a woman a black woman who may be living with disability. That's one of
Mm.
the identities that I didn't include, and so that might be like good to hear. I'd love to do more, dear Black girl.
Yeah, you could do. See how my brain is thinking. You could do so much. You do little podcasts. You could do all of that, dear black girl. Love it, love it, love it. Some of the underlying theme I saw as well in some of the letters is this kind of invisible need to live up to standards that we created for ourselves. Like no one else said you had to be superwoman, but in some some ways you were thinking, no, that's who I need to be. I need to go above and beyond. How do you think we can kind of help young girls to see the opposite of that sooner rather than later? Because for some of the women in the book, it was 30, 40 years old before they realized, I don't have to keep doing this. How can we help these young girls to see this sooner?
Start modeling self-care and stop
Mm,
running ourselves into the ground so that our girls don't. And here's the reality. Very often Black women do have to do a lot of things because no one is showing up to help us, and that's a reality in a lot of Black women's lives. But we can also do what we have to do and prioritize grace for ourselves and rest and self-care where we can. And we can also tell our girls to prioritize those things.
mm,
And asking your girl how she is, asking your friends how they are. There's in my first book there, I interviewed this woman, and she said, when you've been strong, she was talking about strong Black women, and she said, when you've been strong for so long, you could be down on the floor crying, saying, somebody help me, and your friend will walk past you and say, girl, get up, you got this.
yes,
And we
true.
do that a lot to each other. And
Yeah.
so we have to stop. It's one thing to be inspiring, but we also need to know when you need to ask, you okay, sis, instead of
Hmm. Hmm.
get up, you got this,
Yeah.
you know?
So, what do you do for self care? Anything in particular?
So I like yoga. So last year during the pandemic, I got certified as a yoga teacher.
Oh, awesome.
So I love yoga and meditation. I love reading. I'm a horrible binge watcher of terrible television.
Hey, what you watching right now? What you watching?
So, Real Housewives of Potomac,
Oh yeah,
you
yeah. That's
know,
terrible TV. All right.
terrible TV. I know it's terrible TV. Um, binge watching movies. Like, I love to be in the woods. So
Mm,
occasionally, if I can, there's a cabin that I love in Brown County in Indiana. If I can go there, and sometimes it's like, but for a lot of us, we can't spend money. Like self-care doesn't have to
yeah.
equal money. And so sometimes that all the care you can do is, my yoga guide said, take a moment and just 6 deep inhales, 6 deep exhales.
Mm-hmm. Take
Sometimes
a
that's
moment.
self-care you can do.
Yeah, I need to take a breath now.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, love it. I love that. I may have to do some of those little self-care tips. I was talking with one of my best friends not too long ago, actually, about this, and my mother and her mother, and we were kind of discussing. I can't even recall what my mother did for self-care. I remember she was always taking care of us, but I seeing her go get her nails done or doing anything that I consider to be self-care, I couldn't pinpoint it in my mind. And I was sitting here after reading your book, I read about not seeing your parents as people. When do you finally get to see them as people and not mom and dad? And that just hit me like I don't know if I ever have.
I don't know, or maybe it looked different. I mean, like I remember my grandmother, like watching her stories. I imagine like that was a way of self care, but not like that, not going to get a mani pedi or
Yeah.
you know or anything like that. Um, yeah,
I remember she got her hair done every 2 weeks on point.
yeah,
That is one
yeah,
thing.
yeah,
Every 2 weeks, her hair was
yeah.
done. But anything else, I couldn't rack my mind around it. And it also made me think too, just as parents in general, that you always see them as mom and dad, not as they have full lives. They have baggage. They probably should read the book too. All of that
And
is real.
even if they were, maybe they were, I don't know. Like, maybe they were finding self-care, but they didn't talk about it. And
Yeah.
so I think it's important that like we like one thing we do for younger generations is actually talk about
Mhm.
how we prioritize it and talk about how we prioritize it when we don't have a lot of money or when we don't
Yeah.
have a lot of time so that they can help navigate in the future and treat themselves well.
And speaking of talking about it as well, has your family read the book as well? What do they think about it?
My family is always super supportive. My nieces were like two of my beta readers. So before I even
Really?
sent it in to the publisher, I was like, I want you to read this because it needs to speak to girls like you, not me. So I need you to tell me like where I'm wrong. Is there something you don't understand? Is there a word you don't get? I am actually this Saturday. My mom is a member of two book clubs, and I am going to speak at her book club on this Saturday. So
Okay.
they are very very.
Shout out the book
My mom
club.
and dad are very proud.
I love that. Love that. Shout out to all your book clubs out there. Would make the world go round. All of y'all. Love it. Love it. See, I got about 5 more questions. We got a little bit more time left. Good, good. Okay, good. So, there was, where is it here? I think I just lost my question here. Well, that's all right. Well, you did talk a little bit about colorism in the book and mental health. Were there any, did you get feedback or any response from any mental health professionals that wanted to add anything to it to make sure that anyone reading this has the support that they need?
Well, one of the things that I did that I thought was really important is one of the letters, the letter that signed Dr. Tiffany. She is a dear friend and a mental health provider and focuses a lot of her work on Black women and Black girls. So I
Mm,
wanted to make sure, there are stories that come from, personal reflection in that chapter, which is important. But I also thought it was important to hear from a licensed professional
yeah,
so that that's in the book.
that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
I liked all the added tips that were in there and even the questions at the end of the chapters that have you reflecting and thinking back on things that you need to do yourself.
Yeah.
So, wanted to make sure. So, I will make sure we good on time. Good. So, before we go, because I'm going to make sure I get you out of here on time, I did want to request from our readers. I have something for you guys to do. Okay.
Ooh.
Give you something to do. Page 38. This is something you need to do. So, wait a minute. Maybe I didn't write that down. Hold on. Where is it? You need to write a letter to yourself. All people who are on here watching, write a letter to yourself. Black girl, where does your magic lie? Write a letter about the things you love about your black girl self. Think about you and your fullness, your blackness, your girlhood, and all the other identities you have, and remind yourself why and how you shine. If you don't do anything else, write yourself that letter. If you don't write it for somebody, write yourself the letter. Do that.
And actually, at the end of each chapter is a prompt like that, because I want to get girls used to speaking to themselves
Yes.
gently and lovingly, because that's what we have to do so that we learn to treat each other lovingly. You can't
Yes.
love yourself, then you're going to have a hard time being loving towards other people.
Exactly. And that's a message for you
Mhm.
right there. I didn't even have to tell her to speak into the camera, give a message. She gave y'all a message right there. Well, I will let us close out today. I want to thank you for being on here with Book Mecca. I would love to have you back multiple times up anytime you want to come on Book Mecca and hang out with us. Let me know.
I love talking to you. It's always so much fun. And hey, the second expanded edition of The Sisters Are All Right is out in October.
Okay.
So I hope I can come and chat you up again.
Yes. You know who we have in October? Donnie Walton, Opal and Nev.
Yes. Yes.
I'm so excited for her.
Yes.
And so many more. I love it. It's almost like a big Book Mecca family when I have all the authors that are coming on, and I just feel like I know you. I feel like I know you in my head anyway before you get on. Then afterwards, I really do.
I can't wait to watch that. I sent my mother that book for her birthday in April, so I'm so excited to watch that.
Good one. Yeah. Well, all right, Book Mecca folks. I always close with a quote, and I got a treat for y'all because the quote I chose today is from Tamera Winfrey Harris. So it is. We have facets like diamonds. The trouble is the people who refuse to see us sparkling. Snap, snap. Yes. Well, thank you again so much, and have a wonderful evening.
So much. I appreciate you.
Oh, appreciate you too. Yeah. Have a great one. All right, guys. So everyone who is on, we'll be back next month with another breakthrough series. We have so much coming up for the rest of July, the rest of August. So be sure to follow us on bookmecca.org for all the calendar, as well as on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. So thank you again for tuning in to our breakthrough series, and good night.